Good afternoon and welcome to my presentation. My name is Gehrke. I'm a student of the Graduate Diploma in Psychology at Monash Uni. The purpose of my presentation is to um, present a research paper and look at the different aspects of the paper and then the strengths and limitations of the paper. The paper I've chosen is by Abramovitz and O'Leary, and it's titled "The Effectiveness of Delayed Punishment in an Applied Setting." Rationale: past research on the timing of punishment, that is, how quickly the punishment followed the behaviour, was conducted in laboratory settings rather than applied settings. So this paper was the first to look at the timing of punishment in an applied setting. Previous literature in a non-applied setting had noted that punishment needs to be immediate to be effective. This study was the first attempt to examine the effects of timing of punishment in an applied setting. The aims of the study: the first was to examine the effectiveness of immediate and delayed punishment on what the authors term off-task behaviour. So things like fidgeting, daydreaming, talking with other students, not concentrating. The aim did flow from the rationale. So what the study set out to do is what it ended up doing and what was analysed and concluded. The hypotheses: the first was that punishment will be most effective when it's immediate, that is, when it follows off-task behaviour without delay. The second is the timing of punishment will have different effects on the interactive and non-interactive off-task behaviour. So the authors classified off-task behaviour as interactive, so the students were engaging with other students or staff, and non-interactive off-task behaviour was things like fidgeting and daydreaming, so not interacting with other people. I refer to Jackson and her colleagues' criteria for a good hypothesis. So these hypotheses were logical, they were testable and tested in this study, and refutable. So the authors did note during the study that alternative explanations for their findings. Participants were 4 boys selected out of a group of 6 boys who were referred to the laboratory classroom because of high levels of hyperactivity. They were of normal intelligence and from middle-class families. The participants were attending the laboratory classroom daily and were observed for 50 minutes each day. The children were working on individual tasks and not engaged in any group work. Their behaviour was coded as either on tasks or off task, and the children were exposed to 3 experimental conditions. The first being immediate reprimands, so reprimand being punishment. So if they engaged in off-task behaviour, their behaviour was reprimanded without delay. The second condition was delayed reprimand, where the reprimand followed the off-task behaviour by 2 minutes. And the third was a mix of immediate and delayed reprimands. The key results: so the first was when punishment was delayed, the mean off-task rate was 79%. When punishment was immediate, the mean off-task behaviour was 42%. So punishment was more effective when it was immediate. However, there was the timing effect was not observed for non-interactive off-task behaviour. So it wasn't observed for behaviour such as daydreaming and fidgeting. Conclusions of the study: the immediate punishment resulted in lower rates of interactive off-task behaviour. When reprimands were delayed, there were higher rates of off-task behaviour. This was the first documentation of this effect in an applied setting. The authors make suggestions for the mechanism of mechanisms underlying this effect. and that's probably outside the scope of this presentation. The strengths of the study. It was the first study to address the timing effects of punishment in an applied setting. It looked at a third variable, peer interaction, which previous studies hadn't. And the authors acknowledged competing hypotheses and competing theories that would explain, in quite some detail, that would explain their findings. So they were very open and looked at alternative explanations. Limitations of the study. The sample was very small. It only included boys. It was selected from middle class families, and it was a clinical population, so generalisations to the general population are not there, but would probably follow in and should follow in future studies. There was no control group. The type of punishment used was verbal reprimand, so some more analysis has to be done on whether verbal reprimands constitute punishment and how valid they are as a method of punishment. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.